I've learned some minimum tech in the last little bit. Okay, welcome. Just shut off all these other bells and whistles. My brother, an honor to see you, always.
Pleasure to be here.
Let me introduce my brother here, Andrew Hewitt. We go back at least, what, how many years?
My first Warrior Sage experience was in Calgary, Canada in 2000, probably six.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That wasn't when he was 6 years old. He looks very young, just so you know. You're dealing with an old soul. So we met then, and then we re-met. Our friend Daniel introduced us. We met at an event. You were part of the organization, and we reconnected, and we've just hit it off at a very deep level. We have a very mutual, deep love for each other, a combined, shared mission and vision to make a difference on the planet. And I have to commend you. Andrew he's the founder of Game Changers 500, where they actually, and he'll share more about that if you wish.
Sure. Yeah. There's a part of my journey where it just became so obvious that we needed an alternative to lists like the Fortune 500 or Inc. 500 that rank companies based on revenue and profit alone. And so Game Changers 500 was a project to replace those lists with a list of purpose-driven organizations, which we did for several years. And that led me down many different rabbit holes in the world of conscious business.
And one of the things that I've admired about you is your capacity to go around the world, meet with the most impactful beings who are at the top of their consciousness game, and you help unify us for the greater good. It's a very powerful siddhi you have within yourself, and I just want to honor you for that.
Thank you.
You've opened a lot of doors for me, and you've helped me be able to take my gifts and keep bringing them to the forefront. So, and I know I'm only one of many. So thank you.
It's a real joy, truly. Effortless work through me and not by me.
Yeah. So please share with us, with my friends here, what are you up to in the world, and why?
Sure. So, gosh, it's probably about 12 years ago where I had a major wake up, thanks to the work of the Pachamama Alliance, and just really got in tune with the state of the world. And since I was young, I questioned things. I questioned the school system. I questioned everything. I'm sure many tuning in are like that. And for the first time, I realized, I'm like, wow, the whole system is insane. Like this system that we all participate in, that we go to work in, that we go to school in, that we get medical care in, that we build businesses in. It's like the whole thing is just like, it's insanity. It's like it's going to bring us off the cliff as a human species.
Absolutely.
And I was like, why is nobody talking about this? Is it only this Pachamama Alliance group? And so I became an advocate. I was doing a lot of speaking on the college campuses around North America at that time. So I started speaking on this and saying, hey, it's time for a game change. The game that we're playing, that we're defaulting into as young people, is not a game worth winning. You rise to the top, get all this money, you get all this stuff, and it's not fulfilling, and it's actually causing a lot of harm to the planet. And so, I mean, for many years, it was a struggle of just actually getting people to listen. And now here we are in this moment where it's like everybody's listening. And those of us who've been in this space for all these years, it feels quite surreal that we reached a time where it's just inevitable that humanity needs to reboot how it's operating. And so my journey has been one of navigating that. It's hard to peg it to any one organization or initiative. It's just been a sense of being all in to support this great transition. And it's so complex that part of this journey for me has been just navigating the complexity, doing a lot of studying history, finding real geniuses of our time to learn from and synthesize. And and come up with at least some blueprints of how we build a system that can truly work for all life. When I say system, I mean models of business, models of I would say wellness rather than just healthcare, education. It's like these are all interconnected. So you can't really just build one piece. You have to kind of think of them all as a whole, interconnected. And frankly, after being in many different experiments with that type of work, what came through so clearly is that in order to create something externally that's transformative, it needs to come from a place of transformation within us, and that the external is just a reflection of the internal. And so everything was just pointing to the deeper personal work. And that's where we reconnected, Satyen, and just you've been on the path of holding that flag so beautifully for all these years. And that's a lot of what I'm calling in today and why I'm bringing the game changers of our time together. It's to do the personal transformation work so that we can really be in the frequency of which we want to create externally.
Thank you. You know, in my work in leadership, it's blatantly obvious that we can give any type of advice that's morally more uplifting, spiritually better, environmentally better. But until the soil in the individual is ready to be seeded with that, it really means nothing. We're only, you know, we're in our worlds, we tend to speak to the already converted.
Exactly.
And then there's this gap, this whole other gap where the idea of systemic understanding that there needs to be, it's actually the way things actually are. And we're really out of kilter with the way things are. We're in a consuming rather than a symbiotic relationship with all things. Mm-hmm. Now, how do we make that transition? I want to know, this is the big, if you will, leap. How do we make the consciousness leap from being self-centric, or at least my company, my team, whatever, at least it's just huddled here versus to something where people can get, leaders in business positions can understand that we are symbiotic and then act accordingly and architecture accordingly the forms of their business.
Yeah. So first I want to speak to what it's not, because I feel like part of discovering what is actually, we could say is the necessary sufficient conditions for a whole new paradigm to emerge. There's a lot of things that we could think is it, and I've discovered over my trial and error what it's not. And I'll tell my own story with working with some of the world's top purpose-driven companies and creating this ranking, this Game Changers 500 ranking. A lot of those companies that we ranked as best in the world, over time, I watched them slide back to more traditional capitalism. The founder left, or they raised more money, or they, got sold, or whatever it was. And I felt really disheartened because I was like, I thought this was it. Like, if we could make purpose-driven business the new cool, and we could help these companies, get traction. And what I discovered is that there's a much deeper level of change that's required. And so once something becomes cool, it attracts people in. So the early pioneers of this space were really doing it. I mean, they were absolutely modeling. There were hearts in it. They weren't trying to become something. They were just actually being in service to life. Now, as it becomes a thing and there's certifications to get, and you need to do this to attract young talent, and people tell you it's more profitable if you're a business that leads with purpose. Now the why of doing it is tainted with ego.
Yes, got it.
And so that's the trap, right? And it's the same with green energy. It's like there's a moment where out of the purity of their hearts, people were coming up with alternative solutions. And now it's like, because it's the buzz, you have major profit-driven oil and gas companies capitalizing on the mind share of people wanting green energy. So it's the same thing. So that all of that is not that. It's not that. And I think it's important to be able to sniff those things out, because some of our greatest talent get stuck in these things like they're like a honeypot. it tastes really good, but it's sticky and you get stuck in it for years, and it's really not it. It's really not it. And somewhere deep down, if you're in one of these situations right now, you might just tune into yourself and be like, yeah, I know intuitively, I know it's, people praise me and they say it's great work, and I get the accolades, but it's like, it's not really it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is step one, is to be able to sniff out things that are more ego driven and attracting in ego and allowing ego to continue to thrive in a place of power and certainty, and what is absolutely truly devotion in to serve the world. So that's step one.
Yeah. And that's the biggest step. It's subjugating your ego, the thing that brought you perhaps a lot of strength and power in the world of form, in the world of whatever that architecture is. You climb up in it, you get your strength, you get your self-esteem, you get your credibility, you're seen in a certain way. There's an esteem that comes with such positions of power. And power, as they say, all the great yogis, all the great sages and saints have always said, corrupts, ultimately corrupts. And the only way to counter that is to purify and to recognize what the true source of power is, which ultimately they always point to, which is spirit, the divine, God, the ultimate, the goddess, whatever the experiences of something sacrosanct beyond our individuated self. And I believe that's the next, not only logical leap, but necessary leap for all people in leadership to be able to, if you will, bridge their integrity gap. My friend Ryan Mishler shared just earlier today, a leader in the men's movement, that there's what you know and what you're doing, what you know you should be doing and what you're doing. And that's, he calls the integrity gap.
Yeah.
And so I am sure that most every person in a leadership business way, in an impactful way, they know it. They have some gap. It's either narrow or wide. And the challenge I like to put out is, the more wider that is, the more painful the inner experience of life is. The more hollow, the more shallow, the more the seeking for superficial things to fill you, distract you, sex, drugs, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
That's it. That's it. And you see it. I think one of the biggest challenges is that to bridge that gap often looks like getting out of the way that you're funding yourself or surviving. And that part of the challenge is that when we actually start modeling out what we could say are the necessary and sufficient conditions of a game, I like to use the game analogy of like a game, a way of coordinating humans that actually sustains omni-considerate win-for-all behavior. Several aspects of how we currently structure and fund corporations just don't align with that new criteria. And so but does that mean we have to create a whole new type of corporate form and go do something beyond capitalism? Probably, right? But that's hard. No individual on their own can just pull that off, right?
It can't be communism either. It can't be capital. It can't be any of that.
Exactly. It's not the isms. And but this is, I think, where a lot of people feel stuck, is that they're really trying to bridge that gap, but they're playing a game that's reinforcing behaviors that create scarcity, that create power dynamics, that have profit be prioritized, and it's a means of survival, and that's part of the challenge.
To bridge this gap, business leaders, what makes us become the top of the top is that we're able to have strong vision and strong implementation, whether it's through ourselves or through delegation, but there's that combined power of visioning, missioning, accomplishment, attainment, and the energy that comes with that. in creation. But what's really amazing to me is I've come to meet you, your friends, the circles you've introduced me to and that we've connected with, that we've merged with, is that there's amazing beings, very brilliant on many levels, and sourced in the heart in this, what you shared, Omni Consider, Win for All Consciousness, who are actually designing models, systems, ways. So it's not just a shot in the dark, we don't know what to do. There's actually a visioning and a creation of that. Can you share about that? Because
Sure.
I feel that we need to really let people know that it's not just the old way and we're in a blank. We actually have all the solutions. Please share about that.
Sure. So a frame that's been really helpful for me is to recognize what activities are helping us transition to a better society and what are behaviors that are helping us post-transition, as in build a completely new system. And both are important. And so people often get burned because they're like, gosh, I like doubled down thinking this was it and it's just not it and I know it and I'm just, but you could know that there's a useful way to help a corporation, for example, create less harm. Now, in my view, we're not going to take our current public corporation form and bring that into a model of society that actually works for all life. It's like there's fundamental flaws in the design of that system that we can only get so far with it.
Yeah.
But it's not going away overnight, and it produces
incentivizations in its architecture.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay.
Now they also contribute a lot of value to society, and there's a lot of resource there that's useful, and they're in a way also like it's like this new ivy of a new system is growing. It needs a lattice to grow up, and so otherwise everything stays theoretical. So our current system is also a great testing ground. So you can work within corporations, you can work within society as it exists now to like let it be the lattice in which the ivy grows, but you're clear that the purpose isn't to support the lattice. It's actually to have the ivy remain striving on its own.
Yes.
And so that, I think it's just a helpful frame for people to know when they're getting engaged in system change, that they're clear on the strategy. And are they working on a transitionary project? Are they working on a post-transition project, like building a whole new model? And if you're building a whole new model, you can use the existing system to start experimenting. And that's actually part of what we need to be doing.
I want to ask a tough personal question on a gut level and from your knowledge and research and understanding. Do you think this system just needs to burn to the ground and all mayhem break loose? The whole economic structure just like totally freaking collapse for humanity as a whole to even have the wherewithal to start building something new? Does it have, do you feel that, like, not what you'd like, right? What do you feel?
My kind of metaphysical reality is that Earth is a place that gives birth to consciousness. And so that the orientation of what happens here keeps moving us towards waking up. And that this isn't new. This isn't just like, oh, we're the special ones that are now waking up. No, this happens throughout history. There's these cycles, right? And so we're in one of these great turnings. But when you see it as like all for us, when you see it as like life will give us what we continue to need in order to wake up. So if we're stubborn, it's gonna keep hitting harder and harder. But if we surrender to it, then I think will the system need to burn down? I don't think the system needs to burn down, but I do think we need to wake up. And when we wake up, we'll stop participating in the system that we have. We'll stop actually advancing it, and that will probably be a more smooth transition. But I really believe that everything happening now it's a real test of, can we stay present? Can we stay rooted in ourselves? Can we do clear sensing? Can we tune into insights that come and act on that in our full sovereignty? Or do we spin into fear? And this is the dance, right? Life is it's a dance between love and fear always. And so the external world's constantly testing us. It's like, how much can we stay in our hearts, rooted in our power, but coming from love? And fear will tempt us and trick us in all the most cunning ways, or you could say our ego will tempt us in all the most, especially as we start to wake up. And so from my view, that's like what's actually happening and what's most important to tune into.
Very good. Thank you. It always boils down to personal responsibility. It always boils down to, I'm the CEO of my own life. And I'm responsible to be aligned with nature and not. My feeling is, right, that the biggest disconnect is the break in symbiotic consciousness, the oneness, the tacit knowledge, knowingness that you're my family, you're my brother. I had someone comment, a friend comment, he says, you have a lot of brothers. And I go, yeah, I have one blood brother, my brother Priyan, who's my best buddy. We talk all the time. And I've got brothers around the world, whether I meet with them for a few times or I've known them for years. And for me, I was born in Uganda. We moved to England, then Canada, and I've been all around the world. I married a Jamaican woman with multi-cultures within her. And so my children are really of every corner of the planet. And so I've come to recognize in my body, right, that we are family. And now if we see it in genetics, all the streams show that we're one big family in migration pattern. And we've forgotten that. Yeah. And business leaders, by our karmic disposition of creation, we want to be in command of our own reality. We wish to choose the realities we want. We want to have and enjoy the freedoms to do what we want, when we want, how we want. That's the ultimate aim of the entrepreneurial spirit, I have found, to have a type of inner freedom. Now, all we have to do is recognize that our inner freedom and the inner freedom that's good for all will magnify our own freedom. We'll release it even more. Will give us even more access to untold levels and depths of freedom that you can't even begin to know until you've cracked open and you've made the courageous act to risk the known comfort for the exuberant freedom that's really calling you. Mm-hmm. So I believe the ultimate entrepreneur's next journey, leader of company's next journey, is into the ultimate freedom. You've got it this level, you risk to have it at the full level you can.
Beautifully said. Yeah. And this is it, when we look at this from a systems view, it's so fascinating because a lot of people that work in the system change world are really intellectually bright. And yet what they come to from a very intellectual perspective is that our current system, it's based on knowing, it's based on certainty. You could say it's a controlled system. And it's not like nature. Nature's complex and emergent. So this type of design of a system that we're currently living in, accelerated by exponential technology and population growth, self-terminates. And we're seeing all the signs of that. So then the question comes, well, like, how do we get out of this type of complicated controlled system? Well, you have to let go of the knowing. You have to let go of all the ways in which we've been being to build this type of system, which is based in certainty, it's based in fear, it's based in control, to become more like nature, right? And what is nature? Nature's recognizing its interconnectedness. It's spontaneous, it's emergent, it's complex. But that is all about a personal change.
Yes.
And so the question really is, who do we need to be in order for this new way to emerge? because the change won't come to us, but it will come through us when we're available to be animated by the divine, by life, in service to the whole. And that is about getting out of here in the knowing and getting more into here, into the heart, in a way of being. And that is the journey. And the ancient texts all point to this as well. And so, of course, we're at this amazing moment in time where the conditions are forming the diamond under pressure.
Yes.
We're getting just enough pressure to wake up to the truth of who we really are. And to be a leader that participates in that is to be a leader that learns how to surrender more into the unknown, a leader that knows how to fly in the face of not needing to know the future, but rather tuning into insight, tuning into intuition, sensing into their connection with those they're working with, and acting more like an organism rather than a controlled organization.
Aho, beautiful. So I want to hear a story or a share or an experience of yours, please, of how you've helped someone, a business leader in some realm, who's teeter-tottering with this idea of coming from this depth, organizing his organization and company, steering it towards this omni-win consideration. How have you helped them? What's the psychological life? How have you helped them bridge over to this way of being that we're sharing about?
Sure. So first thing I learned in this process was to discern who's really ready for that. As Game Changers 500 took off, I got a lot of inbound requests to consult Fortune 500 companies, and a lot of people wanted to be part because they knew this was the future of business. It was purpose-driven and all these things, and yet a lot of that energy coming in was developmentally, I would say, not ready to actually be able to do it. They were still coming from their why was really still based in the consciousness of power and progress rather than service. And so I had some experiments with large corporations that ended up in me over the years learning how to just go in and just tell the truth and be like, all right, you guys want to do this. They'd have like these famous purpose-driven brands on the wall, and they're like, we want to be part of this movement. And then I'd hear their strategy, and it's like all they actually really needed to do was to get tuned in to what their heart was calling.
Yes.
Because so much of it was about a strategic move.
Yes.
So it was a brand strategy, yes, rather than it was about a tuning in and saying, you know, what could we really do to be in service to a cry in the world? Like, and feel it in the heart, and just like, but some people are more ready for that than others. And that was a big learning for me, was to first and foremost be able to discern like who's there, who's really just ready for this level of change.
You know, I've had the fortune of working with many companies and organizations, and there's two that stand out right now. I'd love to share the story of this. And it was the readiness of the leaders to put personal growth and coming to the heart, coming to depth as the priority, like literally the priority. They had invested this in themselves. They didn't know what would happen if they invested in this depth or personal growth, they called it on the outside, or success coaching, as they named it as well, on the inside. Well, the first thing that we did was we went in and we looked at the mission for one of the companies. It was very convoluted. It was shareholders, this and this, you know, all the typical statements that are on the wall. And the first thing I said is we have to let go of the idea of a mission statement and simply have a mission.
Brilliant.
And then through feeling in, as you shared, through a process where we went deep within, and it started coming from a deeper level. First the mind, then the next layer of the mind, then the next layer of the mind. We started emptying the layers of the mind, the strategic mind, the one that has to take care of the growth of the business. And we kept emptying out, keep feeling. We followed the thread of what feels truer in the whole, what makes our bodies feel good, what opens our heart. And ultimately, the flowering of it was creating a world that doesn't break down. The essence of the software, it predicts when things are going to break down way in advance.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So now the mission of that stated to the world made the company blow up. It's now entering railroad stations all across North America. It's saving many lives. It's bringing the production cost or the cost of maintenance way, way, way down. We're not waiting till things break, and sooner or later it'll be in everything. So that's an example of something that's reducing the cost of having to repair and buy things. It's having us go back to the day and time where let's make things that last a long time.
Yeah.
They're not lasting so that we can continue to sell things, but we build reputations on things that are sourced in excellence and long-term value, that we can feel honorable and good that we give it to our juniors in life.
And that's what gives people a feeling of purpose, right? Purpose has become such a buzzword. And again, it like you said, it ends up becoming a statement. And often these statements are lacking meaning. I was sitting in a boardroom once with a Fortune 500 company executive team, and they had brought this purpose statement through all the legal compliance, and they were like, I don't know how much money they spent on this thing, but they were trying to get the statement perfect. And I followed up by email after, and they wanted my opinion. And I'm like, guys, purpose isn't a statement, it's a feeling. And the only way you know if you're on purpose is if you're, first and foremost, if your people who work at your organization feel a sense of purpose. And if they don't, it's not meaningful. It's not tapping into something that people feel is a worthy purpose of their life. And then second, does the customer also feel like they can get engaged by actually supporting and buying your product? Do they get a sense of purpose because they're contributing to this bigger mission? And so it's amazing actually how many people are just seeing this from an old lens. And but there's brands out there, like to give you another story, a company I've been working with is Organic India, which is a real pioneer in conscious business. 25 years ago, and in Lucknow, India, this company starts to bring Tulsi, the holy basil plant, to the world, completely emergent and kind of like, probably you'd say it is like a chaotic process, really embracing the unknown and allowing this thing to emerge, but staying rooted in the heart of the mission and how they treat their farmers, and their sustainability initiatives is just like next level. And so here we are in COVID, and we've been in this inquiry of like, here's a company that makes amazing Ayurvedic herbs. They actually have some of the best teas and supplements to support immunity holistically. And we're like, well, what's ours to do? Like, how do we respond in this moment? In India, everybody, it's some pretty dire conditions. And so this is an example of how to do it right, where the start of it was just a genuine, like, what is the cry? Like, what is the need that people are actually asking for? And how are we uniquely qualified to serve that? Well, we know that there's a lot of people who are in fear because in India, especially, it's like a lot of people have coughs. A lot of people, through the pollution and otherwise, have signs that they could get in fear. It's COVID, and they're actually just in panic, and there's nowhere to get tested, and they're just sitting there in isolation in fear, and probably have close members of the family close by, and we're like, wow, if we could somehow solve that would be great. Well, we happen to have a network of amazing wellness experts from around the world, and in India, very simple thing to do is to start broadcasting that content and targeting those regions to get people informed about how to build holistic immunity. But not only that, to then be able to offer them the supplements at cost, or even buy one give one, so those more impoverished neighborhoods can can receive what they can't afford to get. And so it's just such a good example of how in a time like this, it's like we're really getting to see who are the conscious leaders, who are the companies that are tuning into the variety of cries of the world right now and finding a way to use their resource and infrastructure to serve those needs. And it's a great moment to find the true performers from the pretenders.
Generosity and care is the new billionaire.
Yeah.
You know, there's an extraordinary company I'm working with in Austin, Texas, you know, actually all through Texas, called Casero Capital, underneath the ownership of Monty Lewen and his wife, Nally, who've been, you know, students and doing my work for many years. And it's underneath now the leadership of Yen Young, who's an extraordinary CEO, very heart-centered, very conscious. And they took the extraordinary leap of saying, we want everyone to be trained in self-realization, awakening to the degree that they wish. Have your way, and please feel free to serve them in coming together and coming into the heart and coming into self-understanding, whatever. And what we've been doing over the last year, the company has just been going from this all to immediate like alignment and now moving forward. And they too had a mission when they started. It was like this. We went through the same process of bringing all the leadership in a room. What are we really here for? What moves our heart? What will bring even deeper fulfillment to us as a whole with what we're already doing? And so again, the mind comes up, we share, and then what's even deeper than that? More mind comes up, superficial ideas, beautiful, nice, all valid, all cool. But as we keep dialing in, as we keep emptying the egoic mind, the strategic mind, at the bottom of this well is already, I've always found, is already spirit, just waiting. And then all of a sudden, when we've touched it, all of a sudden, Nally says, better homes for better lives. And that became the mission.
Beautiful.
And now everyone, so they're in the real estate company. They have many forms of real estate companies, from construction, renovation, to acquisitions, to financing, to property management. Like, you know, it's a group of different companies. But now they're training everyone from the CEO, goes deep into inner work, all the way down to coming and meeting the ground floor workers who are sweeping and cleaning the toilets and fixing the roofs, everyone. And it's been, I have to say, for me, such a deep fulfillment to see a company care about the whole's growth, not just their leadership teams. They're not just working on peak performance. They've really, they really get this idea that I've been sharing called peak existence. How can we have our existence be a peak existence here?
Beautiful. I love that. Well, I mean, they couldn't have found somebody better than you, Satyan, to help them come into coherence and in alignment with self-realization. Like, truly, it's actually rare to find somebody that knows business and knows how to build a team and work with team dynamics, who's also been deep in the path of awakening. And yeah, I love seeing you in service in that way. It's we need more of you. So train more people in this capacity, please.
My brother, what I was, you know, what I wanted to share was to be honest with you, I had such a inside, I was running on positivity, intention, but inside I was feeling shit. Like we're near the edge of a cliff. You know, because what if we start changing the hearts and minds of leadership? What about everyone else? It becomes a selfish type of inner awakening. It becomes a privileged inner awakening. And with, you know, Yen's leadership, he's like, no, we all need to grow together. And let's make that the strongest virtue, whatever that, and not our just values, which they do have, incredible set of values. Let's have the growth come to the center, because that's where true value arises from. if not, it's just morals on a wall.
Mm-hmm.
But when people get interconnected, really, I want to share this one little exercise that I think can be supportive of everyone in any form of organization. It's get together with whatever team you're in and let them know a way that you raise my significance and reputation is this. When you do this and this. So, brother, when you share good things about me, it raises my significance and reputation. Thank you for that.
How do you do that, Satyan?
Yeah, but that's only one side. That's only one side. Okay. On the other side, I say a way that you lower my reputation and significance could be, hey, when you're late on calls or you don't show up here and you don't get this work done, then I've told someone I'm going to get my work done for you, but I need your stuff and my reputation diminishes when you're late with it. So we share with each other because well, it's obvious to grow in a company, an organization, in a corporate world, you have to raise your significance and reputation. That's how you're noticed. You have to fulfill whatever you need to fulfill to do that. Some of it's pure, a lot of it's egoic.
That's my question, is how do you use that type of language without people falling into the trap of ego?
Well, look, if I'm sitting there, and let's say there's 5 of us on a team, and I tell everyone, I tell everyone else on the team, a way you lower my reputation is, and a way you raise my reputation is. And if you're making notes, you're going to be hit at a body level hearing your colleague tell you how they lower your reputation. That part will probably sting at some places. It'll probably educate you, won't realize what you were doing to lower their reputation.
It's brilliant because it's actually what it's doing is it's deconstructing the ego in the other.
Exactly.
It's not about boosting the ego in the one receiving it. It's about deconstructing it in the people around you.
And then you tell them, hey, and the way you can raise my reputation, because here's in the Tao, if I aim to raise my reputation, it creates excessive potentials and the universe will always want to knock me down again. So by raising my ego somewhere, it could be through some stupid thing I do, you know what I mean? Something that knocks me off my pedestal. It'll always happen. You cannot escape the law of the universe. It's period. But if I build everyone else's reputation, then I'm in alignment with the law of the universe. And in other words, I'm in service to life, the life in front of me, the life of my team. And so it switches. Now, when we share that with each other, because I'm going to hear it too from you. I'm going to hear from you how I lower your, even if I've never done it, you're going to tell me how not to, just in case. And then you're going to tell me how you can increase my rep. Now I am armed to support you the way that you want me to. And I am armed to not put you in detriment from the way you've already taught me how and shared with me. This brings a team together like this. It brings them into vulnerability and empowerment simultaneously. So
earlier I mentioned the future of business is moving from organizations to more like organisms. And this is essentially the training that you're offering, which is, I love it, is when people can fly together like a flock of birds, where they murmur and it's, you could say it's oneness, it's a level of capacity to feel a part of the whole, where each part, together creates a whole greater than the sum. And that's it. That's the work. And what we've done is we've taken people and we box them into these defined roles and accountabilities, and we treat them like a number, and we're only focused on if they can get these predefined results, which just stifles life, right? It actually stifles emergence. And what we want to do, which is the unpredictable, is actually to create this type of coherence that you're doing, where the team is actually so bonded, interconnected, that they can become a collective sense-making organism, right? Because one person's capacity to sense what's meaningful is so limited compared to a whole. Now, for the whole to do that effectively, people need to be nurtured in their capacity to actually be tuned into insight, intuition, so it's like the signal. You're getting the signal rather than the noise.
Yes.
And so there's a training and a nurturing that this is the big healing that we need to go through as a society, is to to get out of the fear scripts, to get out of the patterning, to get out of all the things that just keep us in this disconnection from being a receiver of signal, receiver of insight and guidance. And then also building our strength. I love your martial arts background, and I've seen you do this so well, Satyen, is like get people also into their root, into their power, so that they can, when they receive the insight, they have the sovereignty to act on it, but not acting empowering over others, but in connection with them, because they've learned how to feel empathy and stay in an empathic connection with others. And I really feel that is the future. In the groups that learn how to do this first, what's going to arise out of those organisms is going to shape the future of the world.
Absolutely. Aho. It's like we're moving from the authoritarian direction only and becoming more inclusive and awakening the feminine component within us, which is invitation. And I see it's not either or, but the artistry of feeling and pulling from the spectrum of invitation and direction in leadership. Sometimes we need to challenge ourselves. Sometimes we need to praise and acknowledge others far more than ourselves. And we can go beyond either or and recognize we're a holistic being, and that an organization is just that. As you said, it's an organism. It's beings. There's no such thing as an incorporation. I mean, I think one of the major psychic flaws in the system that we have, if you will, the metaphysical flaw, is making a thing into a being under law. We are incorporating, we are giving a nothingness a soul, and we're making of equal status to us as beings under the corporate law system. And just that at the root throws us out of our symbiotic relationship. It's like it's not a real thing. It's like me making this, like equal to me or you. And if this falls, it's okay. We'll clean it up. If you fall, my heart will break,
Well, what's worse is that those things that we're endowing with the rights of beings are oriented towards power and control and greed. And so it's like, it's not that there's bad people in them. A lot of these corporate leaders I've met over the years, they're great people. They're really trying their best. But the system they're in is so oriented towards short-termism, short-term profit, and basically allowing often the sickest people to rise to the top, right? The people who are, in our society, we have a percentage of people who are narcissists and sociopaths, and unfortunately, the system actually is oriented for those people to rise in positions of power. And so you end up with a world where some of the most powerful and wealthy people are also some of the most sick and controlling. And so that's a big part of, I think, the shift that we need to make is have a system that's truly oriented towards bringing out the best in us and supporting those that need healing and getting the healing, because they're not happy in their narcissistic patterns. And that is my hope.
Yeah, that's my hope too. And brother, I feel there's a ripeness now in this time. And my challenge to business leaders, if there's any one of you assholes watching or destroying the planet or abiding and aiding it with your direction, just like Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, then everyone else did it, but he became the hero. He became the one that everyone remembered. I believe that all it takes is the willingness to be vulnerable, to go and say, okay, wow, we're going to totally do a 180. We're not going to do a mild. We're not going to do a window dressing change. We're not going to do a strategic brand upgrade so we're up in the green club. We're actually going to do this at a soul level of being. My prediction is those who take that challenge and that risk and say, okay, I'm in. I know that every single one of them will go through an incredible aid from the universe itself, from Gaia itself, will come charging to their aid to meet their willingness to take the challenge of rescripting within and then a whole architecture of their business design. And it's the only, the worst thing that can happen is you die. And we're heading that way anyways. And we all die anyways. And so we have an opportunity now to make good of the life that we do have, to make good use of the spirit of our capacities that we've developed in leadership, to become the hero, and then to relinquish any egoic need to be a hero, but to do the heroic thing, which is to be the first to cross the 4-minute mile, and to be the second, and to be the third, and to be the one that says, we're doing it, and you guys follow.
Beautiful. Yeah, this is a moment where we're being invited to leap into the unknown and claim from the truth in our hearts that we're all in to be part of something new, and that we're all in for the personal work that it will take for us to meaningfully participate in that. And that leap, like in a time spectrum, is actually pretty small. So maybe it feels very painful for a period of time, but the time is actually small. Now, not taking the leap is like the slow burn, because life has made it very clear that if we're not moving in this direction, it's going to keep getting more intense. And so I feel it's a moment for us. The reckoning is are you going to sit and slowly burn in the pain of that? Or are you going to wake up and become part of the future and be part of building the new? In what you know in your heart, you've probably known it in your heart for a long time, is actually what we need to do. And it's comfort, it's fear, it's scarcity that keeps us actually stuck in an existence that is not it, is not what we're actually fully capable of. And wow, what an amazing moment to be alive, to go on this journey together.
Yes.
Right? So I celebrate that.
Oh, and the beauty of all of that is none of us are alone. There's people on this side who have been walking that path, who are happy to embrace and welcome you into this risky realm of the inner being, which will then direct you to create and be part of the true change that's emerging, that we might as well move with rather than resist.
So on that note, Satya, what resources would you recommend for people who might feel inspired even listening to this, that be like, yeah, I feel like I'm ready to take the leap? Like I have some of my own, but I'm curious to hear from you. Like where would you send somebody first to embark on this journey?
If there's a calling here, then come and reach out to us and we'll direct you. There's, depending on where you're at, what area of your company that you're working on, what's going on in your particular personal and professional life, then we'll direct you to the most opportune ways to make the transition, to work on what needs to be done in a strong, deep, and quite frankly, it has to be in a rapid way right now.
Yeah. How about, has there been any books for you or kind of teaching methods that have been most helpful that you feel are good places for people to start?
You know, I believe, Ricardo Semler is one of my heroes. And Ricardo Semler he's a former CEO, and you can see great TED Talks on him, and I'll put them in the link here. And he's a CEO who's now gone into education, new education models and systems. But the way he created his company was everyone was taking care of themselves as a whole, even from creating their own salaries to their timetables, as an organism, all working together. And this has been happening for years and years and years. He started this years ago. Just his vibration and where he comes from and the legacy he's left in this company is not only worth a read, it's worth diving into and feeling. Because if he did it many years ago, then we can do it today. And if he did it in Brazil, in a very different climate and culture and such, and was able to do it, the company has gone on to be tremendously successful, continuous growth for many, many years. So these viewpoints that we're sharing aren't newfangled. It gives you a hope and a sense that not only is it not newfangled, it's actually the way to go, because it creates far more freedom for everyone, including the leadership. It creates stable profit. It creates a stable economy, and it allows people to flourish and enjoy their lives and to become even more loyal to the companies, um, long-term vision and themselves. No one wants to leave. There's a lineup to even apply.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, this
isn't
is
that
it
the
as well.
company that you'd want to have, right? So that's one place that I would direct for sure.
Yeah,
And
while it can feel scary that it's a leap into the unknown, there are always people who've walked the path.
here's another great book I recommend, and this is a colleague of mine, L. Hunter Lovins, who's one of the main authors. And the book is called A Finer Future: Creating an Economy in Service to Life. And the back says the blueprint for an inspiring regenerative economy that avoids collapse and works for people and the planet. This is an excellent book to dive into, to get a sense of not only the inspiration, but the how to, and then it can be done, and actually models and directions and avenues to start to fulfill this depth of intention. So it's here. The know-how is here. Let's jump on. Okay.
It's time.
You bet. Brother, anything? How about to get in touch with yourself? If my friends want to come and connect with you, how can they find about you?
Sure. I mean, social media is one way. I've been a little bit behind the scenes this last little while, working on some new frameworks and testing them in the trenches. But you can find me through Facebook and Twitter, and gamechangers.co is the website where we showcase companies that are purpose driven for benefit organizations. And that's another good resource too.
Thank you, my friend. What's in your heart to share to complete today with us?
Yeah, to know you're not alone, that we're all on this leaky canoe together. And in that togetherness, the way will be revealed.
Thank you. Good energy, good love, good health to you, brother.
Yeah, you too.
Much love, everyone. Thanks for hopping on.